Good morning, inspired artists. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Diana Kra, and today I'd like to share some insights with you how to paint light with watercolors. Uh, Purist watercolors just spare the paper out where they want to indicate light and use the white of the paper, but we have many other tools that we can use to indicate light with watercolors, and let's dive right in here. Okay, this is a painting I did a while ago, and I cut this out just to show you. Here you see very soft edges. Let me get this better tuned in here for you. Okay, I hope you can see it now. Here we have very soft edges, and that is always an indication of painting wet on wet, right? When we let it dry and then apply the next layer, then we're getting a more distinct area with a harder edge. So we can paint light in the distance with wet on wet technique. So the water and the colors, they soak into the paper and then they create this misty background here. And then while we're working our way from hardly any edge to a little bit more distinct and very distinct edges and tonal value towards the front, we're painting with less water in the paint and wait for every layer to dry before we paint. So now this tree is very covered, it's backlight, and it's covered in paint evenly. But I like to show you, I hope it still works because it is a while, I like to indicate a little bit of light coming from one direction. So I'm applying just some water on the one side of the tree here and on the top of this branch, and let it soak in for about 30 seconds. And I'm taking a synthetic brush simply because the brush is a little bit more spunky. It is harder than a real hair brush. This is a real hair brush, a squirrel, and this is quite soft, and this is way harder because we need to rub a little bit. So we rub on the paper back and forth with a damp brush, and I'm cleaning it every time I'm going over our wet area, and there we see we can lift the paint out. We can lift it up. I'm cleaning my brush every time I'm doing a stroke here over the wet area. But you see there is some light coming. So the color is lifted up, and we can indicate some light by lifting. We can also use a paper towel, and as long as it is wet, dab on it and increase the lifting with that. So now you see I have soft areas here and a little bit of light. That is one way to indicate some light. Then I painted different colors. I just set them on dry paper, and I worked my way around the color wheel. So I'm not using the complementary colors beside each other, nor do I use the primary colors beside each other. Because if we do, then we get a muddy color, a neutral. In this case, I just like to preserve the vibrancy of the colors. So with this here, for instance, I did a graded wash, and I wanted to show you again what that is. Let's go to this corner here. Let's put this away. How we can indicate light with a graded wash. So this is fairly even looking area. And I have a lot of paint in my brush here, and I'm just going over and pull it down. Now I'm cleaning my brush, make it damp, and I'm just going over one edge and soften the edge, and then I'm pulling it away from my main color. So here I have a lot of color, there I have a little color, and that is called a graded wash. I can go over it again, but it lifts even more color up. As long as it is wet, I'm pulling the color away from my main color stroke from here, and then I'm creating a graded wash towards the inside here, which I wanted. Okay, so it's dark here and lighter here. I can even lift up to increase it. The main point is that you have a gradation from dark to lighter without a hard edge in the middle. We can do this one more time on that purple area here. So I start with one stroke here, put some color on, then I'm cleaning my brush, and then I'm going just on the one side of the stroke and pull the color away from my main stroke, and it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. That's a graded wash. Can do that again. See, it is wet here. Now it's wet. I'm painting wet on wet. Show you again. I'm cleaning my brush, have it damp and clean, and I'm just going over the one edge here, one edge, and then pulling it away from the main, from my main brush stroke. I can do that on the other side too. I'm just going slightly over the edge, and then I'm pulling it away. So see, we have an area of dark here and lighter here and here, and that is called a graded wash, and I'm using this to do skies, for instance. We have other tools to create a light effect with watercolors. Another one is I am going with the color white in different mediums. So this is an acrylic paint pen, and acrylic colors are in there. I can shake it up and I can dip down, push down on my tip here, and then I'm getting the paint out, and then I can do lines or I can do dots, making this different shapes. This is an abstract just to show you. This is an acrylic paint marker, and the color will dry totally opaque. Then what I like to use is the bleed-proof white. And as I said, any other medium we're using with watercolors taints the watercolor purist movement, because with the purist you just leave the white of the paper for any white you want to use or indicate light. Okay, so where it is dark, this is a Dr. Martens bleed-proof white. I think it's a color white with a little bit of chalk in there. It feels like it, and it is quite opaque too. So I'm showing this here. See, I have used this already here. I like it. It is a little bit transparent, maybe 10%, and I like to use it to indicate light. See, when you have a reflection in an animal's eye or so, then to use different mediums, white is a very good way to do the smallest areas. This is a calligraphy ink, and the ink will dry very opaque too. You just have to clean your brush right away after you have used it in the ink, and usually I use soap with it, so I don't want to just dab in it. It does the same like the bleed-proof white. I like this ink best when I'm using it with a writing pen, calligraphy pen. Okay, then we have this drawing gum, and that is a liquid gum. It comes with a little bit tint, blue tint, that we know where it is, from Pebeo. I think I like that the best. You can have a look at it here. So how you work with this, that is you wet your brush Then I dip it into dish soap, and then I dip it in my Frisket, and then I can paint with it. So everywhere where I paint with it, see, it leaves this wonderful mark. Where I paint with it, and I clean my brush right away, because otherwise it's the liquid rubber will stick to my brush and ruin my brush. Usually I have one distinct brush only for this. So the liquid Frisket or drawing gum is applied here. I let it dry, and then I can paint over it, and then I can erase it. Let me see if I can find this here. See, this is all done with that liquid Frisket. So I erase it after everything is dry. I paint it over it. I have no hard edges whatsoever on the paint. That is my advantage using this. Sorry. But it makes hard edges. So when I use this for very light areas, I definitely, in my good paintings, like to soften the edges after I use this Frisket. So I'm softening the edges to make a little bit softer edges after I remove this. Another tip with using Frisket: do not use any hair blower to speed up the drying process, because then the adhesive will stick to the paper like crazy, and when you remove it, you're gonna ruin your surface of the paper, and then the color reacts differently when the surface is scratched. Okay, this is a very nice tool to do smaller areas too. Then I have the regular Artist Golden acrylic paint out of the tube. It needs to be softened a bit before I can use it. This is mixed media then in combination with watercolors, and this comes not off, and you can paint it as a last accent. Okay, one more thing I like to show you. This is a piece of candle wax. I love this technique with a piece of candle wax. Look at this. I wrap the candle wax on a white piece of paper, and then I can paint over it, and then see the texture of the paper comes out. So the problem with this is it never comes off again. It stays like this. And every time you put a different layer of paint on it, it will be showing the same. See here? It will always retract the water and the paint where the wax was applied. I love this technique for painting rocks, light on the rocks, or reflection of water in an ocean or a lake or something like that. It's just a piece of regular candle wax I'm using. Good. And last but not least, the color white out of my watercolor wells here. It comes in a tube, and I seldom use it, but in some occasions I do. And I show you, this is a dry surface now, and I put the color white, watercolor titanium white on, and you can already see here it's grading down and it starts to get transparent. So I'm cleaning my brush, and then I'm doing a graded wash just with some clear water here, going along one edge, and you can see how nicely this white disperses where it is wet. See, it's a watercolor white. It's a watercolor white, and it definitely is half transparent. And you can see here how nicely it lightens up that purple, which was in the back. So I have one soft edge and one hard edge here, but this white as a watercolor paint or color is not very efficient to do when you need absolute opaque properties. I like to use the watercolor white, titanium white, for indicating smoke or fog in an area, or even a sky with some stars. Then I spatter some on. It will dry a little lighter, so it is the stars in the background, for instance. It has its purpose, but not when you want to indicate really strong daylight with hard edges. Then the other mediums are better to use. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial about different ways of indicating light with watercolors. See, here's the wax again, and the Frisket here. And one more tool to indicate light is to paint darks. Yeah, that might be a surprise for you, but we're painting light with darks. When we apply darks, then the light comes out. So here I want to show you, this is just a color test with different trees. And I show you if I apply some darks around my light. So I'm painting in the negative space here. Then my tree stands out more. I love the negative painting technique. Cleaning my brush, softening out the edges, and my tree here definitely stands out. And I can do this with any shape. Here's another tree. See, you can hardly tell where that tree is, so I just imagine it, and I'm giving it a shape by painting around this tree. And then I'm softening the outside edge. And I can indicate the shape of this tree by painting dark around it. I can carve out any shape I want. There we have two trees. And then darker I paint around, then more intense the light color will look. So we're painting lights with dark. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial about how to paint light with watercolor. And I love to see your experiments in our Diana Craw painting group. Feel free, the more you experiment, the more you learn about your paints, how they react with each other, if they are opaque or transparent. And yeah, it's just fun to play around with watercolors. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.